Good, happy Sunday morning, and welcome to this Sunday and this week's edition of Politics with Riley King. We have a lot of political news to get to this Sunday morning, so let's begin and dive right into Politics with Riley King. It's Sunday, February 2nd, 2020. Let's begin. First up, Biden campaigns in Iowa ahead of caucus. Biden stresses unity ahead of Monday's caucus. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton. And WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton is live in Iowa, covering the latest caucus coverage.
Bernie Sanders is on our side and always has been, fighting to protect a woman's right to choose.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is also hitting the campaign trail in Iowa, looking for an up-close and personal experience with voters. WMUR political director Adam Sexton has more from Cedar Rapids.
While the former vice president may not be drawing crowds as big as Bernie Sanders or Pete Buttigieg, his campaign is definitely emphasizing those personal connections he can make after the speech, and they're hoping that can pull them through. On the trail in North Liberty, Iowa, former Vice President Joe Biden, who's been one of the frontrunners in this race since the beginning, says he's not going to give up on bipartisanship.
Several of my colleagues in this race think it's naive of me to think we can bring the country together. I refuse to accept the notion that it's a forever war between Democrats and Republicans.
The crowds Biden draws are not the biggest compared to other candidates, but his support in the polls has remained strong. Speaking to Democratic caucus goers, there's a reservoir of goodwill and familiarity in regards to Biden.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Bernie Sanders draws large crowd in Iowa. Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders holds rally ahead of Iowa caucus Monday. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Technology. It does great things for people, like putting CPAs at our fingertips who will review our taxes with us.
I checked your return and you're good to go.
Great, thanks.
People can be good at anything, even taxes. Intuit TurboTax.
Well, the Iowa caucuses are tomorrow, and presidential candidates are barnstorming across the Hawkeye state, trying to lock down last-minute support. WMUR political director Adam Sexton is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where Bernie Sanders held a rally.
This wasn't an arena crowd on the same scale as President Donald Trump, but by the standards of this Democratic primary process, it was significant. And this is a campaign here in Iowa that is carrying itself very much right now like a winner. Bernie Sanders threw down the gauntlet in Iowa Saturday night, if not with his words, with the size of the crowd he drew to an arena in downtown Cedar Rapids.
Monday night, 2 days here in Iowa, it all begins.
Not only did Sanders have the popular band Vampire Weekend backing him on stage, he also brought with him a progressive who's who of endorsements. But this campaign prides itself on its people power, and burners in Iowa are taking nothing for granted.
I think the big thing is, the polls are showing him in the lead, so don't let that discourage you from coming out thinking that, everybody else will take care of it.
Sanders is under fire from rivals over his ambitious agenda, but the Vermont senator had a message for the forces he says will try to stop him from passing Medicare for all.
Tonight, we tell them your time has come. We are, whether you like it or not, going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program.
The candidate projecting confidence heading into the first real test of this primary cycle.
So with your help, we're not only going to win here in Iowa, not only going to win the Democratic nomination, but we are going to defeat this dangerous president.
So there's confidence, but also some sensitivity right now around reports that there are more establishment Democrats trying to somehow stop Senator Sanders from obtaining the nomination. On stage, one of his surrogates, Dr. Cornel West, said everyone needs to, quote, be ready to throw down at the Democratic convention later this year. Reporting in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Adam Sexton, WMUR, News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Voters in Iowa face big decision with days until caucuses. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Free. That's right. TurboTax Free is free. Free.
It's decision weekend for Iowans, with the caucuses looming Monday night.
Well, this requires more commitment on the part of individuals who are concerned about our democracy.
As he tries to pull off an improbable victory, former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg is now drawing sharper contrasts with fellow top-tier candidates like Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders believes that we have to have this kind of all-the-way-out, all-or-nothing approach. I don't think that's going to make it possible, not only to win, but to govern. There's another outsider candidate who has far exceeded expectations and is looking now for the ultimate breakthrough after qualifying for the New Hampshire debate stage.
And that is the next president of these United States, Mr. Andrew Yang!
So I'm going to have tons of airtime to make my case to the people in New Hampshire and around the country. And I also feel more free because, frankly, missing that last debate made me feel like, like I can come back and be fairly confident and comfortable and human and not really worry about anything else.
Just as it is in New Hampshire, everyone here seems to be waiting until the last minute to make their choice. But after more than a year of candidate vetting, they're ready to go.
I am so proud of Iowa for the simple fact that we are right now leading the nation on where this is going to go for our future.
Two very subtle but important differences between Buttigieg and Yang out on the trail here in Iowa. We're not far from the former South Bend mayor's political home base in Indiana, and you can tell he's comfortable here in the Midwest. Yang, on the other hand, he tells us he's very much enjoyed his time in Iowa, but he can't wait to get back to the Granite State and onto that debate stage. Reporting live in Des Moines, Iowa tonight, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Des Moines is bustering as the caucuses approach. Let's take a listen to that video from We Are Iowa Local 5 News.
Well, Des Moines is packed to the brim with visitors, candidates making their final pitches to caucus goers, media here to cover it, observers just watching to see how the process works. All those extra people in town also means big business for shops around town. Local 5 Chief Political Correspondent Rachel Droz reports.
How you doing? I'm doing good. What's going to happen with today?
A constant stream of people at Java Joe's in Des Moines as networks get up and running for shows ahead of the Iowa caucus.
So this is our fourth opportunity to host the Iowa caucuses here with NBC and MSNBC.
The added spotlight, helping business across the city.
That's why you got to come see us more often.
It really gives people an opportunity to see what's going on in Iowa and in Des Moines.
As people descend on Des Moines.
Just because it's such an exciting time. It's the start of the campaign.
People are here for many reasons. Some supporting climate change action. Others checking out the candidates as they make their final push to walk away victorious.
So you mean my candidate for president?
I've seen the caucus in Iowa. I really thank Iowans for taking this responsibility seriously.
From Iowa's first in the nation contest to kick off the 2020 primary race.
Des Moines really is sort of the center of the earth up until after Monday.
In Des Moines, Rachel Droz, Local 5 News, We Are Iowa.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Only 2 days until the Iowa caucuses. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
The 2020 race, just 2 days until the Iowa caucuses. Democratic senators fighting it out for the nomination who have been held up by impeachment duties on the Senate floor, now roaming the state with those other candidates in a final push to make their case. ABC's Rachel Scott is on the campaign trail tonight.
In Iowa tonight, a final frenzy. The caucus is now just 2 days out. Senator Elizabeth Warren, fresh off impeachment duty, making a mad dash from the Capitol to rally her supporters dressed in a campaign hoodie.
I heard there were some people who wanted to do some selfies!
And making her closing argument with voters today.
We must come together as a party and beat Donald Trump. That is our job. Yes!
Tonight, a surging Senator Bernie Sanders shaking off concerns about his electability.
But I believe that we are the strongest campaign to defeat Trump.
A Democratic super PAC trying to stop his momentum before the first votes are cast, pushing out an aggressive ad campaign questioning the senator's health.
I do have some concerns about Bernie Sanders' health, considering the fact that he did have a heart attack.
And I believe that our campaign is the campaign of energy, is the campaign of excitement.
The divide within the Democratic Party on full display in a critical election year. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib booing the mention of Hillary Clinton's name as she campaigned for Sanders.
No, I'll boo. Boo. You all know I can't be quiet. No, we're going to boo. That's all right. The haters will shut up on Monday when we win.
Today, apologizing, writing, I allowed my disappointment with Secretary Clinton's latest comments about Senator Sanders and his supporters get the best of me. Former Vice President Joe Biden on a 20-city, 17-county bus tour throughout Iowa.
Mr. Vice President, have you benefited from having the state largely to yourself during this critical stretch?
All I know is it's been feeling good for a long time here, and it still feels good, and we're going to keep moving.
Rachel Scott joins us now. Rachel, one candidate not in the state tonight, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he's zeroing in on his Super Tuesday strategy, and now there's an opportunity for him to make the debate stage?
That's right, Tom. The DNC changing its rules, dropping the donor threshold. The pathway is now open for the billionaire mayor who is self-funding his own campaign to possibly qualify for the Nevada debate happening later this month. Tom?
Hi, everyone.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Caucus curriculum. Changes coming to the Democratic caucuses. Let's take a listen to that video from We Are Local Iowa Local 5 News.
Every night this week, we've been bringing you information about the Iowa Republican and Democratic caucuses that you may not already know. It's part of our series called Caucus Curriculum.
It's part of this series, and tonight, Local 5 Sabrina Ahmed explains the big changes to the Democratic caucus process.
There are 5 major changes to the Iowa caucuses this year, handed down by the DNC to make caucuses more inclusive. Number 1, satellite caucusing. If you can't attend your in-person precinct location, then you can have a satellite caucus. Number 2, streamlined realignment. Only members of non-viable groups will be allowed to realign. If in your first preference your pick is viable, your choice is locked in, and non-viable groups must either combine to become viable or move to another viable group. Number 3, more information released. Raw totals from the first alignment, final alignment, and state delegate equivalents will all be released. But state delegate equivalents will still be used to determine the allocation of those national delegates. Number 4, a recount. For the first time, a recount can be asked for if the candidate can prove it would impact the number of national delegates he or she would receive. To make this happen, presidential preference cards are being introduced. They'll record each person's first and, if they realign, second choice at the caucus. And also, results are locked in. Allocation of national delegates is determined by the results on caucus night, not the results of the convention process. It's a lot, right? So who makes sure that all of these rules are executed correctly? Tomorrow night, we show you who runs the caucus. I'm Sabrina Ahmed, Local 5 News. We are Iowa.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And if you're still watching and saying, how does this Iowa caucus work? Well, here's a video for you to tell you how the Iowa caucuses really work. Let's take a listen to that video from CBS News.
Next week, the Democratic presidential primary really kicks into high gear when Iowans caucus on Monday. The Hawkeye State will be the first to pick a favorite. A Monmouth University poll shows former Vice President Joe Biden is still leading the race, with 23% of likely caucus goers listing him as their #1 choice. Snapping at his heels, though, is Senator Bernie Sanders, whose campaign has surged in Iowa lately. Sanders, along with 3 other candidates, Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, and Michael Bennett, have been confined to Washington recently for the president's impeachment trial, so they haven't been there campaigning. If you're watching all of this Iowa coverage wondering, what exactly is a caucus? You're probably not alone. Don't worry, our Natalie Brand has a refresher course on an Iowa tradition.
It's time for a woman in the White House! Cheerleading, competition, and some confusion.
We merge with them, they're not viable.
A glimpse inside what caucus night will look like.
It's happening in rooms like this. This will happen in 1,678 rooms all at the same time next Monday.
These Drake University students got a practice run, holding a mock caucus to put their candidates and skills of persuasion to the test.
What is the strategy going into next week? Well, we're going to out-organize, outlast, and out-hype all the other corners.
Organizing is the name of the game. Caucus goers gather in groups based on their top choice for president. But to be viable on caucus night, a candidate needs the support of at least 15% of people in the room.
Every caucus goer needs a card.
In this mock caucus, only Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg met that threshold in the first round, leaving other candidate supporters scrambling.
How stressful is this?
Very stressful.
You want to come? I'll give you a little sticker on the way.
My goodness.
Okay, well, it's over. You got it. We got it this time. Let's do it. Let's stream it together. Yes. We got her.
This Iowa tradition dates back to the 70s, launching Democratic presidential candidates from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama.
What the caucuses do is provide a glimpse into unexpected strengths and unexpected weaknesses. It's up to the rest of the country to decide what to do with that information.
Drake University professor Dennis Goldford says the key question candidates will have to answer:
did you do better than expected or worse than expected?
We ended with 66 in Budaj and 87 in Warren.
The other Democratic White House hopefuls came up empty-handed in this college exercise. Monday will be the real test for their campaigns. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Des Moines.
Okay, and there you go on that video about how the Iowa caucus works. And if you're still not understanding, here is another good video. Give me 1 minute. Let's watch this video now. Okay, and there you go. And that does it for this Sunday edition of Politics with Riley King. I hope you all enjoyed watching this Sunday edition of Politics with Riley King. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics with Riley King. And have a great week ahead of you as well, everyone. Goodbye.